Hello, and welcome to the Security Industry Association Vertical Insight Symposium on Multi-Tenant Security. I'm Ron Hawkins, Senior Director of Industry Relations at SIA. The Security Industry Association is the leading trade association for security technology businesses with more than 1,600 corporate members, including manufacturers, integrators, service providers, practitioners, and others. Here's a look at a few of our upcoming events. As you'll see on February 19th, for those of you in the Washington, D.C. area, we have the National Capital Region Security Forum. We hope you'll join us in Arlington, Virginia at the Access Experience Center. Our next Vertical Insight Symposium will be on February 25th, and that will focus on banking and financial security. And of course, coming up the last full week of March, we have ISC West and all of the accompanying events. So we hope you'll join us for many of those out in Las Vegas. And we want to point out that if you are planning to attend, you can get 20% off the conference, the education conference, by using that code on the screen. And that is good for both a one-day pass and a full week pass. And once we close out this screen, if you didn't get a chance to jot down that code, feel free to reach out and we can share that again with you. Please remember during this webinar that we will have Q&A at the end of each session, so go ahead and click that icon at any time to ask questions. We do have a full agenda today, and if you miss anything or you just would like to share the information, remember that you can watch a recording of the symposium on the SIA website. Now, before we get started, I want to make sure to thank our sponsors, Access Communications and Allegion, two longtime CM members, very active, very supportive, and we appreciate all that they do for SIA, both today and throughout the year. You can learn more about these companies, of course, on their websites, access.com and allegion.com. And I'm sure everybody out there already knows, but Access is AXIS, not like access control. All right, securing a building or facility always has its challenges, but the difficulties can be increased when multiple tenants are involved. Not only must each occupant have their own unique access, they each bring their own priorities, preferences, and ideas concerning security. During this symposium, experts will discuss how to protect multi-tenant properties in a way that maximizes safety, security, and compliance while providing occupants with convenience, privacy, and confidence. Our first presenter, Dom Albano, is the program manager for intercoms at Access Communications. He has worked in the telecom and IT space for more than 20 years, with more than 9 years at Access. He started his career cabling and building computers before moving on to voicemail and call accounting systems, interactive voice response, and call center applications, servers, hypervisors, networking, storage, and VoIP solutions. Dom has degrees in business marketing and software development, numerous certifications, along with experience in support, installations, training, and sales solutions. Dom, thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to your presentation.
Great. Thanks for having me, Ron. So let me get started and share my screen. Let's see here. Just bear with me. Okay. All right. So let's get started. So as you know, Ron mentioned, I've been sort of in this tech industry for a while, and then started into security when I first started at Access Communications back in 2010. Also to note, I'm currently a SIA Time member, and just want to say it's a great program, and I encourage any SIA members on the call to participate in it. Today, we're going to explore one of the most critical touch points in any multi-tenant building, the front door. We'll discuss how we can move beyond a simple buzzer to create a secure, convenient, and welcoming experience for residents, all powered by modern video intercoms. Now, property managers today are juggling a trilemma, and it starts with confidence. Do your occupants feel safe, in control, and trust the environment and systems you provide? Then there's convenience. Tenants demand seamless convenience for their connected lifestyles, from deliveries to dog walkers. But that can't come at the cost of safety. At the center of it all is security. You need robust security, but a fortress-like approach frustrates tenants. The right entry solution doesn't force you to choose one over the other. It delivers all three. All right. Now, my focus has been on intercom systems, but before you even get to the door, we need to talk about the property. Commercial, residential, resi-mercial, it's all the same. Before you get to the door, we need to talk about the property. When it comes to security, it starts with lighting. Make sure the area is well lit at night. Make sure the grounds are clean and the lawn is manicured. Look at these images. You have a snowball. Which direction do you want it to roll? If someone sees trash on the ground, they're more likely to throw more trash on the ground. Keep it clean. Add trash cans. Enable people to make it easy to throw stuff away. If someone sees graffiti, they're more apt to tag it with something bigger and better, or what they think is better. Get it cleaned up right away. And unkept shrubs, the sides looking bad, gives places for people to hide. It takes away the confidence of feeling safe. So look at these two images. Which one do you feel safer and more secure? Which one instills confidence in the tenant? Now, this is actually called something, and hopefully you may have heard it before. And so we're just going to touch on what it's called. CPTED, Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. And it's made up of different concepts. Natural surveillance, you want to design spaces so people can see and be seen. Natural access control, you want to guide people how they enter, exit, and move through the space. Territorial reinforcement and maintenance and management, make it obvious that the space is owned and cared for. But also social management. You want to encourage legitimate uses of spaces. More positive activity equals fewer opportunities for crime. This is for you to create through physical design and a community culture. So I encourage you to take a look at your property. Have a CPTED site assessment done by a professional and help find ways you can improve your property. Okay, now that we got that cleaned up and instilled confidence and a feeling of safety in your tenants, we can talk about your front door and securing it. Security, the evolution of entry. For decades, analog intercoms were the standard. They served a basic purpose. But as you can see, they were limited. They had crackly audio. If they had video, it was grainy, and an inability to integrate with other systems. They just don't meet today's expectations. The majority of the market still has analog intercoms installed. I want you to stick your hand in your pocket now, your purse, or look on your desk. What does everyone have? A cell phone. Now, is that just a phone? They've had many names over the years. In the beginning, we had bag phones and bricks and candy bars. Cell phones started as just that, phones, communication devices. Did anyone have any passwords on their phones back then? Nope. Today, they've evolved into smartphones, into IP devices. Everybody has a password on their phone. They're used for many things now, more than their original purpose, calling. You use it as a credit card at checkout, as a camera to take pictures. You surf the web, you play video games. you name it. So this is where IP, or network systems, fundamentally change the game. Today's intercoms have made this transition as well, from analog to IP. By running on the same networks that power our data, they unlock a world of possibilities, starting with seeing and hearing who is at your door with perfect clarity from anywhere in the world. That is just the tip of the iceberg. They have become much more than a video call. They are now a security device. All right. So originally, when analog and these older digital intercoms filled the needs, we had to actually ask ourselves, how can we do it better? So let's look at a few of the challenges that presented themselves with these older systems and the need to change for IP. So analog in older intercoms offered lower quality video and audio. So this is CIF or 4CIF. So we're talking 0.3 megapixels. Now intercoms are like security cameras. Again, we have our 2 megapixel, 5 megapixel, 8 megapixel. Huge difference. These older ones offered lower interoperability. They were very limited closed systems that they just did what they did. And they offered low security. You know, with all the wires, someone could just tap into the phone wires, listen on a call, tap into the video feed very easily. And there was expensive and confusing cabling. Everything got wired back to a main panel and an amplifier. And whenever you had to troubleshoot, it was very confusing with separate power sources as well. They also had low programmability on these older systems. You had to be at the site, playing with wiring or dip switches or serial cables, however it required it, and limited, if any, reporting or health check capabilities. And so this has entered the world of IP. So we now have the capability of HD or greater video and audio. Now we have the bandwidth to transmit these megapixel resolutions. So this is a game changer in turning the intercom into a video surveillance endpoint. Now these intercoms have higher interoperability with APIs and open standards like SIP for voice over IP and OMVIP for video. We allow connectivity from different software platforms to help you build that single pane of glass. And these systems have high security with encryption, whether it's secure SIP, HTTPS leveraging TLS encryption, and options like secure boot or signed firmware, getting security updates. There's been a giant leap in security and encryption on these devices. But now we have easy installation. PoE. What is PoE? Power over Ethernet. So now just a single network cable. This provides your network connectivity to this device, and it powers it at the same time with today's intercoms on the market. So no need to have a separate power source and other cables, just one cable to set it up. And now the intercom can talk to other network devices, local or remote, based on how you configure it to fit your needs, which then takes us to high programmability. So now they have easy user interfaces, so you can adjust, expand the feature set with a software update, and the ability for remote programming. Now this is huge. Now you can just throw up a web page to configure the device and program it from anywhere you have access, from your office, the coffee shop, even your car. And for integrators and installers, if a customer needs a change, no need to roll a truck. They can log in from wherever. And also these devices today offer better reporting and health monitoring. When you had these older systems, how do you know the intercom was even working? Now these IP intercoms can do health checks with the microphone and speaker and send an email or an alert or a text message if something isn't working right. There's even tamper alarms, so you can instantly get notified if someone is trying to take the device off of the wall and access it. So this all comes back again to lower cost installation because of your high programmability we mentioned, a single network cable, and easy for mounting and installation. So now that we talked about the needs and how today's IP intercoms fulfill these needs better than analog, let's also touch on, the convergence. So the evolution of IP has transformed like brick phones to smartphones from a communication device to this security device. So we have integration again with video surveillance with these more advanced cameras that are built right on the intercoms. So if you do have an older intercom installed with a camera, newer intercoms have better cameras. That means they can see better in low light. You have color images in low light. You have wide dynamic range, which means if there's a big sun in the background and a person in front of the intercom, you don't see a dark shadow. That dynamic range is able to see clearly the person, even with bright backgrounds. And now, so this can be leveraged as a larger solution as part of your video management system, catching people's faces and clothing and identifying them right at the door. Also, we have integration with access control. So getting built right into the intercoms, and this allows interoperability with existing systems, whether it's managing a PIN, a card, a key fob, a Bluetooth. Now, these credentials can be managed directly on the device, or this information can be passed along to an existing access control system or door controller through different protocols. So one device instead of multiple devices, instead of a camera, an intercom, and access control, this one device increases the aesthetic appeal of technology at the door, creating that lower cost of hardware, installation, and maintenance. How is this possible? It's all because of the network in being IP devices. Now, it's true that these IP-based intercoms have the ability to talk to other systems, this interoperability. But it's important to note, all intercoms are not created equal. So let's look at some of the things to look out for when you're deciding on this intercom system, this intercom security system. You want to check for support for open standards. So it's not an isolated island. Your intercom becomes the front end of your entire building security platform. The video can be recorded by your main surveillance system. An entry event can trigger an elevator to be called. A resident's credential can provide seamless access from the street all the way to their floor, along with a unified access log between your access control system and your intercom. So how is this possible and what to look for? So SIP, this is the voice over IP standard for audio and video calls. Though be sure to look for secure SIP. So secure SIP allows encrypted communication. This is especially important with all of these systems talking to the cloud and calling phones and phone apps. So secure SIP. Next is ONVIF. This is the open video standard. So if you want to connect your IP video camera, IP intercom to your video management system where all your other cameras are recording, or maybe you don't have that yet and you want to future-proof it for when you connect in the future to a VMS or video management system, you want to look for ONVIF support. And ONVIF has a few different profiles. or feature sets it supports. Profile S is a very basic feature set for video, but it's going end of support next year. So it's important you look for Profile T. This uses stronger authentication method and offers a fuller feature set, including bidirectional audio, which can turn your video management system that your security may be monitoring into another platform that can answer intercom calls besides SIP phone calls to other devices. And lastly, we want to talk about OSDP. Now enter the access control standard that SIA created. Open Supervised Device Protocol. If an intercom has a built-in card reader and the intercom isn't managing the credentials and access control, now it can be wired up to an existing access control system door controller, like any other reader. With OSDP, the RFID key fob, PIN, etc., is read and transmitted using encryption to the access control system. This is compared to an older, less secure method like WeGAN. All of this creates a smarter, more efficient, and more secure building. All right, so now we're on to talking about convenience. This is the power in your pocket. The single biggest leap in convenience is the integration with mobile phones. In the past, intercoms were limited to calling master station or dedicated hardware answering units, or just allowing for audio phone calls to a number. With IP intercoms, it adds to that. Intercoms can still create an audio call to a 10-digit phone number. They can call newer updated answering units with HD resolution screens, but now you also get a phone app. So your smartphone now becomes the answering unit, the master station. Imagine a tenant is expecting a package but is stuck in traffic. A contractor or delivery driver rings. The call comes to their phone. They can have a quick two-way conversation, visually identify the person at the door, pinch to zoom if needed, ask for an ID, and unlock the lobby door or package room with a tap. Their package is secure, the tenant isn't stressed. This transforms the entry experience from a tethered in-wall device to a flexible, go-anywhere solution with visual verification. There are also the access control benefits. Smartphones have become mobile credentials. They're able to replace or supplement RFID cards or key fobs. You probably hear more often someone losing their keys than actually losing their smartphone. Now you can actually issue temporary digital keys like QR codes or PINs for guests or service providers. The access is logged, time limited, and can be revoked at any moment. This is far more secure than a physical key and infinitely more convenient for everyone involved. When the official system is this easy to use, tenants are less likely to bypass it, which improves security for the entire building. A common misconception is that increasing security means sacrificing convenience. With modern systems, the opposite is true. Good security features enhance convenience. Instead of risky workarounds like propping doors or hiding keys, you provide tenants with powerful, secure tools. Convenience has definitely taken a front seat with smartphones in today's society. So, I want you to make smart choices for an IP intercom system. The next step is adding or updating an IP intercom to your security system. Make sure you ask the right questions. Ask manufacturer questions. How long has this manufacturer been around? What is the product warranty? How does this company handle cybersecurity? Intercom system questions. What are you looking for? Are you looking for a standalone system? Or does it need to be integrated with existing systems? If so, like we mentioned before, look for Secure SIP, ONVIF Profile T, OSDP. Or are you looking for a whole new suite of security and smart building products? You want to ask, does the intercom create an access log? Does the intercom access log integrate to your current access control system? It's important to create this audit trail. So it's nice and important to have that feature as well. For cloud management and mobile apps, you want to know, where is this actually hosted in the cloud? How easily is this system managed? Does it offer multi-factor authentication? And what are your needs? Do you need an app for your tenants just for video calling and unlock? Do you want this to also have access control to other doors? Or are you also looking for a tenant app that has a full set of advanced features like amenity booking and maintenance requests? These are just some of the questions to ask. Remember, the front door is an integral part of your building security. All right. So to summarize, protecting a multi-tenant building today is about empowerment. Start with SEPTED, then look at your front door. Is your current intercom actually an IP intercom security device? It's about giving residents and tenants the tools to manage their own front door securely and conveniently. So today's IP network video intercoms are the cornerstone of this approach, offering clarity, flexibility, and integration that older systems simply can't match. By balancing these needs, you not only maximize safety, but you also create a more confident, connected, and desirable community. All right. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate that. And again, my name is Dom Albano.
All right, thanks, Dom. Great information there. Covered a lot of ground. Appreciate it. So let's get right to the questions. Let's see here. Do mobile credentials and mobile apps add any security vulnerabilities compared to traditional methods like fobs and cards?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends. Usually, I would almost say they're more secure, especially a lot of older fobs and cards may not even be encrypted or have security keys associated with them. Especially you want to look for newer keys, newer RFID credentials in the mobile credentials. They're very secure, but if a lot of the old like prox cards and fobs and stuff are very insecure and can even be copied very easily.
And as you said, much more likely to be lost than somebody's phone.
Right, right, yeah.
Also, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned at the top of the hour that you were a time mentor, CS Talent Inclusion Mentoring Education Program. Could you just talk a little bit about your experience in that, even though it's not directly related to this subject?
Sure. Yeah. No, so it's been great. I've been connecting with a colleague or someone over in Romania in the industry as well. So it's been fun talking, different, cultural differences as well, and just having a great time, just building a strong relationship with someone else in the industry.
That's very cool. I didn't realize we actually had mentees in Romania. That's great. So, all right. Yeah, I think we'll run out of time, unfortunately, but thank you very much for the presentation. Really appreciate your support of the event.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right.
Appreciate the
Take
time.
care, Don. All right. I'd like to invite our next panelist to join us, Jason. Jason Newland is a highly accomplished professional in the field of multifamily properties and property technology access control. With more than 15 years of experience as a registered and licensed architect, Jason brings a wealth of expertise and knowledge to his role as multifamily specialist and electronics team lead at Allegion. In addition to his architectural expertise, Jason is a subject matter expert in property technology access control. He possesses an in-depth understanding of the latest advances and trends in the field, allowing him to effectively implement cutting-edge solutions that enhance security and convenience for multifamily properties. Jason, welcome, and thank you for the presentation today.
Thank you, Ron, and thank you, Dom. Great presentation. Let's share my screen here. Everybody see that?
Yes, looks good.
Perfect. All right, so what we're going to talk about here, and again, multifamily, multi-tenant, it's such a new industry that's kind of come around in the last decade or so. It's not commercial, but it's not residential. We still have security issues that were at the front of mind, but you're also dealing with somebody's residence. It's their home, so the needs are just a little bit different than a different vertical. Then K through 12 versus a government building versus a hospital. They're all going to have different requirements than something in that multifamily, multi-tenant vertical. Now, if I were to just tell you multi-rate or multi-tenant, multifamily, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Probably a downtown apartment building, walk up or something along those lines. But it's broader than that. There's such a broad spectrum of what we can kind of consider under that multifamily umbrella. There are certainly market rate apartments, but there's also student housing. Even in student housing, are you dealing with on-campus residence halls, or are you dealing with off-campus or independently owned apartments? Senior living is a booming industry right now as well. But senior living could also be 55 and older apartments. It could be independent living. It could be assisted living. It could be memory care. Even then, that one kind of has a spectrum. And then workforce housing, as things are kind of growing, they all kind of fall under this umbrella. New construction versus aftermarket. This is probably something that a lot of people out in the audience today have dealt with. I know, me personally, I am seeing an absolute boom in comparison of the aftermarket access control as opposed to the new construction. New construction is still going on, but I think some of the numbers that I reviewed from 2024-ish was $750 million in projects for new construction versus $5.5 billion in aftermarket. That in itself is going to have a whole lot of different requirements on how we do things. Am I able to pull cable to a wire to a reader on the wall, or am I going to look into wireless access? So all of that kind of boils down into a lot of these terms that we've heard lately in terms of prop techs. And so what exactly is a prop tech? What is it? Why is it important for your business? And how can it improve safety and security? That's what we're all here for, is the security side of things. So prop tech, or property technology, is the application of technology, products, and services in multifamily buildings that provides seamless and convenient experiences for residents, property managers, and owners. What does that mean? Well, again, you're dealing with a commercial application, but you're also dealing with somebody's home. They're going to have things where you want to find a balance between security and convenience. You got to find that sweet spot while also allowing the owners to get they want to spend their dollars where it's important and relevant. So Dom had a great point earlier about initial space design, almost a tenant control, people control versus access control. How do we take that to the next step? We certainly want to have security, but we don't want the building to feel like a prison. So while the features are nice that we're talking about here, quite a few things that you're going to see in that prop tech vertical is, lighting, climate control, rent payments, leak detection, all of these things while also handling that access control side. So I've gotten approached to this before by several different softwares that, there are dozens, if not hundreds of different softwares that, at the end of the day, they all do the same thing. They're all going to open a door, whether that's a lock on the door, a reader, etc. But just like I wouldn't necessarily use an enterprise system in a multifamily building and vice versa, you got to find out what does the owner need and want, and what does their budget allow? Because if you find the correct software that fits the owner's needs, it's not a square peg in a round hole. And not only that, it can lower the operating costs while increasing efficiency. We're here to talk about security. What are those things that are going to be relevant to a multifamily building? You clearly have the unit itself. Everybody gets very hyper focused about your unit itself. I live in unit 101. I want to make sure that there's access control on my door. But what about the rest of the building? If there are common area access, is there a gym? Is there a game room? What about the perimeter? Is there a gate? Do we have a parking garage? Are there other entrances? Everybody, I'm guilty of using DoorDash probably way too much. So how do I get deliveries? What about the Amazon guy or the UPS delivery? How do I handle that one? And then self-guided tours. As we become more tech focused, we have the ability to where if somebody gets off after hours, after the office is closed, how are they going to be able to come see a lot of the vacant units? We're seeing a massive uptick in the amount of people that are going in to do that. Hey, I'm going to schedule you for the Tuesday at 7 p.m. slot to look at the demo unit, a lot of these things on a contactless self-guided tour. So how do I do that? Where do I start? There's so much, it's almost paralysis by analysis. You have to kind of ask some of the basic questions. Where are you in the maturity spectrum of a building owner? What are some of the common area access questions, things to consider when, and do I have to jump all the way to the end? Where do I start? What is my timing and budget? Do I have any existing current access control electronic smart devices? And what is my short and long-term vision? So this is something that I deal with very common. People think that they have to go from just a simple key in a deadbolt all the way up to, cranking it to 11, where you're going in and you have bleeding edge technology, you're scanning your retina to get into your door. And that's not the case. You can absolutely stair step as needs and budget and timing allow. As you can see here, there's different levels. Stage 1, you might just have brass keys. Keys are a form of access control. They're just one of the more basic ones, and we're talking kind of more tech focused here. So as we go from there, where do we go? Okay, I may throw some non-connected electronics on the units, or I may still keep the bulk of the building in mechanical. Where do we go from there? Okay, well, now we're looking at doing more electronics locks across the buildings with key fobs. The beauty of, and this is something that Dom touched on earlier, in terms of the credential types. We've all seen people walking around with cloning tools. There's horror stories about that one, and it's just as simple as, your access control system is not bad, but anything new is eventually going to be old. And there's the difference between smart fobs versus the old prox technology. You can go down, or the key duplicators. You can go down to the local hardware store and make a copy of your key fob. While that's convenient, that's not secure. So how do we make sure that we have an updated credential type? And then as we go from physical credentials to mobile, where do we go from there? From there, we jump from electronic locks with key fobs all the way up to smart apartments. Okay, I do want to start incorporating my access control into my property management software. All of those that handle the database, it's almost the source of truth for these multifamily buildings. Again, If I don't want to have to duplicate a lot of my workflow, how do I make sure that my access control ties into that PMS system? And I want to tie into the rest. I want to have the thermostats. I want to do my rent payments. I want to handle the leak detection, because we've seen a lot of those where the ROI and the NOI makes mathematical sense. And then stage 5, again, an evolution of that one. How do I kind of evolve into the latest and greatest technology? Again, Dom, thank you for doing a great presentation. You brought up some of these points already, things to consider. Making sure you do some research on the company. Are you doing something that's an established company, or are you doing something that's relatively new? Not that we don't encourage technology to always kind of be advancing, but are you locking yourself into a proprietary system? Or if technology changes in a year or 3 years, do you have the ability to adjust, or do you have to completely gut your building? Is the architectural open and interoperable? Can my lock tie into the intercom? Simple as that. Making sure that you have quality products and software and it's working in the way that you want. One of the biggest things that I have a conversation with people almost daily is that to so many people, especially our customers that we're all talking to now, access control is still magic. They don't understand some of the nuts and bolts and details that some of us here on the audience are seeing. They just know that they have a lock or an intercom or something somewhere, and I can use my phone to open my door. Simple as that. But at the end of the day, when you find out, oh wow, oh I can tie this into my rent payments, or I can tie this into the camera system, or I can tie this into the parking, or I can make sure that what I'm trying to do hits my budget. Hey, I didn't know that wireless hardware was an option when you can come in at a fraction of the cost to add some of those wireless technology pieces, especially in retrofits, especially in historic restorations. I don't have the ability to kind of fish through a wall where there's a hard lid ceiling, but I can certainly plug a wireless application in play. Now I've got those features for the budget that I've allowed. What does the customer support look like? If you have an emergency, it's generally not at 2 p.m. in the afternoon of a Tuesday. It's always 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, or 2 a.m. When it's freezing out there, as we've seen some of the situations across the U.S. And how do we partner with those alliances? Go through and then how do I do this? Okay, I found the greatest thing that I want to use. How do I get it? What do I have to go through channel partners? Do I even have somebody that is local to my building? If I have several sites across the region or across the US, can I get that consistent product or support or software in all of my locations? How do I train the staff? Turnover in multifamily is especially high as just a general vertical. How do I train my team? Is it as simple as watching a video? Do I need to have authorized techs come out and teach people? And then can they teach the staff and the residents? How do I do those things? And then again, working with our other providers. We touched on credentials just a minute ago, the difference between fobs, cards, mobiles, NFC. People, especially those in when it's your house, you want a lot of the latest technology. Now, that is also dependent because historically, stereotypically, student housing, you're going to want bleeding edge technology. You want the latest and greatest, and you do not want to sit there and wait for your door to open. If it's raining and I'm standing out there and I've got a bag full of groceries, I don't want to wait for my door or that gate or anything to open. I want it to move, and I want it to move now. So as technology advances, we've gone from keys to fobs, and we went from prox to smart on that one. Now we're going from fobs to phones. Now there's different technologies on the phone. There's the difference between opening an app via Bluetooth. Okay, I'm going to hit a button and I'm going to open that door. But what about wallet? What about being able to tap and go? One of the major questions that I get a lot is, what if my phone dies? When you have an NFC near field communication with the tap and go, either from a watch or your phone, you can have a dead phone for up to a couple hours and still get into your door. If I've got a handful of, things and I can't, get my phone out to do it, can I use my watch? Can I use my wearable to tap that door? Credentials is one of those super small things because nobody pays attention to that credential until the very last second. And that is one of those things that this could have been solved with a 10-minute phone call earlier in the design process. How do I want to make sure that this is going to work across the building? So again, all of these questions, making sure that you ask that one. There's no perfect right answer on a best case scenario, but making sure that we ask the customer those questions. What maturity level is your building at today? And where would you like it to be? 3 months, 6 months, 1 year? Are you building this building to build and flip? Are you building this building to build and keep? Are you standardizing across an entire portfolio? Considering those key factors when selecting a prop tech partner, and then making sure that you speak to a multifamily prop tech specialist. Again, my contact info, I'd be happy to help and point anybody in the direction to help you get to next steps. Thank you very much, and we'll stop sharing from there.
All right, Jason, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Another great presentation there. So I do want to mention before we get into the questions that SIA does have a built environment advisory board for its members. Started off being called the PropTech Advisory Board. Now it's Built Environment Advisory Board. So if anybody out there is interested in that, definitely reach out to us if you work in this field, if the issues that Jason and Dom have talked about interest you. All right, that having been said, so we heard, I think around 2014, mid 2010s was when digital video overtook analog video in sales. Do you know what it looks like now in terms of access control, where the digital analog shares are?
I know that for us, in terms of analog versus IP or digital, a lot of that went from kind of hardwired to wireless, and we had quite a bit of that in the late teens. I know I came on to Allegion around 2018. That's when we were doing a lot with a lot of more of the wireless locks, and it's just gone north from there. Just across all brands, the technology has grown in the last, call it 8 years and 10 years.
Right. All right. We actually had a question come in just as Dom was wrapping up his presentation. We weren't able to get to it, but I'll carry it over to you if you don't mind, and hopefully the asker doesn't mind either. He asked about your opinion of facial recognition technology in these systems.
That one is always a tricky one because it depends on where you are in the building. I know that some of us brands that since we're keeping it agnostic, specifically do not design locks with cameras in there for that exact reason, because it becomes a legal issue at that point. Whereas if you are in a public space, you fully are, that's one thing. But if you are in a secure area, then that's generally been a no-go, depending on where you are. Certain laws do not allow for facial recognition. That's why, again, me personally, I know there's a million different ways of doing access control out there. I don't like PIN codes. I know there's so many locks that have PIN codes, but that's not secure. Whereas if I see that Ron's code is 1, 2, 3, 4, that's not Ron's code anymore. As long as we're using some form of credential that has been assigned to the person, whether that's a key fob, a badge, a wristband, your phone. We talked about security earlier, the two-factor authentication. Oh, hey, what if somebody steals my phone? Most often than not, you've either got a code or a thumbprint or facial recognition that allows me to lock my phone to myself. That credential, whatever form factor it is, has been assigned to that user. And so I know that Ron Hawkins came into the side door at 12:50 on Thursday afternoon. That to me personally is a much more secure audit trail, because again, we talked about a lot of the features there. Oh, hey, I want this bell and whistle and this latest technology, but that audit trail and that security feature is really the factor of what we're talking about.
All right. Next question. So are you seeing manufacturers address the battery operational issues with performance and longevity, looking at backup options for battery operated systems for security?
Absolutely. The battery technology has gone through the roof as well. And a lot of the wireless locks that, again, I personally represent, we're getting between a year and 2 years, depending on the technology. So there's a spectrum of communication. There is offline. That is me still being able to go program a lock. I can still let somebody access that door. We call it no tour. Some people call it data on card. Having the ability to program that lock is still sort of, call it asleep. For the good chunk of the day. And so being able to give multiple years, not just months, but years worth of battery life off of a couple of AA batteries, and then you go from there. Oh, hey, we're starting to talk about connected devices. If something's on Wi-Fi or it's connected to Bluetooth via a panel real time, they're going to still get at least 12 months on being able to communicate. So it's the technology on communication. But yes, that is definitely an issue that is at the front of mind because oh, well, I'm going wireless. Well, I'm just going to spend all my money on batteries. Not necessarily.
Got it. All right. How, I'll ask this question myself, not from
Yeah.
the audience, but how do you build in security so that maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but I think it's fairly common. Users will often, I think, tend to value convenience a bit more security, or at least they'll kind of default
Yes.
toward convenience. So how
Yes.
do you build in the security so that they still have the convenience, they don't have to make a couple extra steps to ensure security that they might not be willing to take?
Sure. That's exactly where technology is coming into play. The first time I showed somebody that, 5 or so years ago, we finally got the ability to do Bluetooth. Great. I want to be able to open my door with my phone. But the first person that I showed it to was upset because they didn't want to have to open their phone to open an app to hit the button. They just wanted to do something that was convenient. So they'd rather use a fob at that point. Now, technology has grown. We're working with phone manufacturers to do things like NFC wallet credentials. That has allowed more of that convenience to also supply the technology because you're still getting that audit trail from the user, but you're not having to go through the steps of do that one. And also the communication time initial connections from different locks, different softwares, different everything. If I was concerned about my device connecting to a server who was making a decision, who then had to go back and make that decision it was taking 5, 10, 15 seconds to make that decision. Again, that scenario of I'm standing in the snow or the rain and I'm waiting for that long, that's not going to be a good application for that one. Bluetooth, since I have a direct connection from the device to my phone, it's sub 2 seconds in being able to communicate with that device. So technology has been able to give a lot of those conveniences to the security side of things.
All right, thanks for that. All right, so another question from the audience. Is there any way to add some sort of anti-passback?
Yes, when you're working with your supplier, depending on how you want to do your buildings, yes, you can do, you know, bidirectional, reporting.
Right. Another statistics question. Do you know the current percentage of industry installation of IP-based hardwired versus Wi-Fi based systems?
No, but I know it's starting to skew that direction.
Starting to skew in which direction?
The towards Wi-Fi because a lot of times needing to tie into a hub or a gateway or something along those lines that would then tie into your network switch. Um, the original version was, oh, I have to specifically tie into an on-prem panel, so that's going RS-45. Well, then we started going to IP PoE tying into the network. Now with Wi-Fi technology growing, I think especially 2026, we're going to see that one booming. So but it's not necessarily a requirement. You don't have to. I've got situations where they say, well, that's great, but what if I don't have common area Wi-Fi?
Mhm.
You still have the other ones at hand. It's
Mhm.
finding that sweet spot on balance between, oh, hey, I've got my front entrance. I need to put a hardwired reader over here. It's the front entrance of the building. I've got, commercial applications because it's a mixed use building. Yes, I want to put the hardwired there. Common areas, I'm going to have Wi-Fi because those are going to have more often check-in. And then back where I don't, then I'm going to have the less often Bluetooth check-in.
Got it. All right. Looks like those are all of our questions. Any last words for our attendees?
No, thank you very much. Again, Dom, you did great, and looking forward to Charles.
Great. All right. Thanks so much, Jason. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. So welcome to our next presenter. Charles Johnson is a seasoned professional with more than 30 years of experience in the electronic security industry. As a physical security specialist, he has a successful track record of developing, nurturing, and managing relationships with channel partners, security integrators, architects, consultants, technology partners, attorneys, and especially end users. Charles holds the PSP certification from ASIS and is also a designated CEPTED practitioner in the state of Florida. He is a subject matter expert in security technology, including but not limited to physical access control, video surveillance, biometrics, AI, IoT, LPR, parking and vehicle gate entrance, interior entrance, and exterior barrier protection. Thank you, Charles. Look forward to hearing your remarks today.
I did not know you were going to read all that. Ron, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the invite. So I appreciate everyone. I'm going to share my screen here, and we're going to talk about, everybody see that? Ron?
Yes, looks good.
Okay. So today we're going to talk about something that I have, I guess through a number of conversations within the industry, realized that most of our industry is unaware of. And that has to do with something called negligent security. And those are lawsuits and claims that are being processed and being received by a lot of our clientele. So as he indicated, got a 30-year career in the industry. It's interesting to have heard some comments about CEPTED. I happen to serve as the chair of membership and outreach for US CEPTED. So if anyone is interested in learning more, let me know. I'll actually be at the conference next week in Dallas that's being put on next week in, like I said, in Dallas. So I guess I could probably skip through this after you read all that earlier, Ron, but just suffice it to say that I focus on three things as the founder and CEO of NGA Security Advisors. The first is as a security consultant. The second is as a Florida CEPTED practitioner, and also as an expert witness in the legal field, where I offer opinions on personal injury and premises liability lawsuits. And so this disclaimer at the bottom is very important. I'm not an attorney. I'm not offering legal advice. I do not have a I want to make sure that everyone knows that even though we're going to discuss some cases, I am first and foremost do not have I'm not an advocate for one or the other. So this is strictly informational. All right, there's all the legalese out of the way. So what is a negligent security claim or lawsuit, and why should we care? I'm not going to read this verbatim. That would be so boring. But long story short, these are situations where property owners, property managers, even HOAs are being having claims or lawsuits filed against them, alleging that due to the property's failure to provide reasonable security measures, it then resulted in someone being injured by a criminal act. So we're talking about a third party, not resident, not employee. Someone comes on the property, commits a criminal act, assault, rape, murder, shooting, you can think of all of it. And the person that has been injured sues the property owner and in essence is demanding compensation. So the legal basis behind these claims is, as you see here, property owners have a duty of care to maintain that safe environment. But it also means that they must take steps if they foresee that there might be a crime that could take place on their property. So the typical defendants are going to be the complexes, the apartments, the condominiums, hotels, shopping. You can think of this is mostly places where people are invited. They are guests, and in other words, if it's a private property and you can't have access to it, then preferably there's a sign there. But these locations that you see listed here, you could make the argument that they are open and allowing people to come onto the property. Typically, the plaintiffs are going to be those listed there that we talked about that are victims of criminal acts. And so that just kind of gives you the basis for what we're seeing in the legal, in the courts today. So what is the core allegation? The goal of the lawsuit is listed here. And ultimately, in the world of negligent security cases, the allegation is that if not for inadequate lighting or the lack of locks or the lack of intercoms from DOM or locks from Allegion, that this would not have occurred. In other words, had they improved safety and had a safe and secure environment, the crime would not have been committed. The goal, of course, is to recover damages for those injured parties. So in essence, these cases are attempting to hold property owners accountable for the crimes that occur. And because they potentially ignored those known risks and failed to take reasonable precautions, thus is the reason for the lawsuit and the claim. All right. Next, let's talk about one particular state, and that is the state of Florida. I've done a good bit of business over my career in the state, and as it pertains to the SEPTED, and we'll get to that in a second, the state of Florida is quite important to this whole conversation. So we're just going to focus on one state for this conversation. According to the Florida Office of the State Courts, now this excludes federal cases. This is just the state courts. In the fiscal year 2023-2024, there were 342 approximate negligent security cases filed in the state courts. So that can give you a basis of possibly what's happening nationally as you start extrapolating that out from a simple mathematical formula. But again, this does not include the federal, so this is just the state courts. According to my research, which may have been ChatGPT, I asked it how many law firms in the state of Florida advertise on their website that they provide negligent security services to their clients. So of course, these are going to be the personal injury and premises liability focused lawyers. The law firms, we're looking at 100 plus. So that's a law firm. And of course, typically your law firm has more than 2 or 3 or 4 attorneys. So you can then determine how many attorneys just in the state of Florida are focusing on these types of cases. So we're now going to look at a specific case, which I have redacted. I am not here to publicize or to focus on any of these names, whether it be defendants or plaintiffs. What is important for you to note is that this lawsuit was brought due to a 2021 shooting where a young man lost his life tragically at a condominium complex in the greater Miami area. This was, I can tell you from what I've researched, this was a domestic situation. We'll leave it at that. He lost his life. The family then sued the property alleging negligence. And as you see on the very top line, in July of this year, they were awarded $100 million in damages. On the right here is the actual verdict sheet where the jurors actually completed the form in the jury room, finding all the defendants were negligent. The next page here, you will see how they broke out the responsibility of the $100 million, and what they gave as 57% is to the property management company. So if you're a property manager, this particular situation, we have a property management company that's now on the hook for $57 million. The security guard company was one of the defendants, and they were found 18% liable, or $18 million. And the HOA, the Homeowners Association, was also found 18% at fault. So there's 18 million. The fourth defendant, which was 7%, was the we'll just call it the domestic person that was related to the deceased. So the right-hand side is where they divvied up the 100 million, 25 to the mother, 25 to the father. He was not married, but he did leave 3 children behind, and those children are the 3 that are listed there at the bottom. So while we are focusing on Florida, now let's take a step back and say, and I want to share with you what Florida has done to, again, I do not have, this gets into what is referred to as tort reform, but this was a bill that was passed in 2023. And this is also where SEPTED comes into play. And so as it was working its way through the state legislature, it was called Florida House Bill 837. Once it was passed and Governor DeSantis signed it into law, it then became Florida Statute 768.0706. It's all the same statute. It's all the same bill. Basically, what this does is it lays out a way for properties, property manager, property owner, property developer, HOAs, to earn, and you'll see it at the bottom, a presumption against liability in the event that they get a claim or a lawsuit similar to the one we just discussed, but they have to do certain things. We'll talk about that in our next slide, but they have to do certain things in order to earn that compliance, which happens to be where NGA Security Advisors comes into play. But the first thing to note is that it designates that multifamily properties, this is a specific statute that affects and is available to multifamily and no other vertical. This is not critical infrastructure. This is not, grocery stores. This is not any other vertical except for multifamily, which it defines in the statute that a multifamily property has to have 5 or more dwellings per parcel. Well, that's where you get into the deed and the title. Is it, how is the property deeded? I can tell you why they drew the line at 5+. A commercial insurance policy is 5 or more dwellings. A residential is 4 or less. And so you can tell that the insurance industry was very much involved in the lobbying for the passage of this statute. So who does this impact? Apartments and condos, absolutely, but it also impacts nursing, retirement, assisted living, independent living, and even timeshare properties. All of those do fall under the designation of 5 or more dwellings. So the additional information to share is, what exactly does the property have to do? They have to hire someone like myself who carries a specific designation in the state of Florida. They have to have a SEPTED assessment. So Dom, thank you so much for laying the groundwork there earlier on SEPTED. I was so happy to see the inclusion of that. They have to have the SEPTED assessment every 3 years. We look at all the concepts of SEPTED. They also have to have a lighting assessment. So we're on property at night with a light meter, and we are measuring the amount of light in the parking lot. There is a specific minimum that they must have of foot candles. That's the measurement that the light meter is capturing from the lighting system. There is also a video and access control technology component to the statute. They must have cameras in all points of entry and exit with 30-day retention of data. They must also, Mr. Allegian, they must also have a key or credentialed lock on the gate surrounding the pool area. That means that plunger, the black plastic plunger that we see all around, that's not the case. That would not comply with the statute. Dwelling unit security. So we have to go to the dwelling units, to the apartments, to the condos. It has to have a peephole on the door. It has to have a 1-inch deadbolt. We also have to look at the windows and sliding locks. So there is a whole component here of actual physical assessment of the property. Then there is an employee training component. They have to have their employees trained on proper crime deterrence and safety. And it's not just the existing employees, it's all new employees within 60 days of their hiring. So, and then they have to document all of this. My report that I provide after the assessment. If they need to upgrade video and access control, of course, the quote and the invoice and the PO and all that interaction with the security integrator. And then, of course, the training documentation, so that when there is, this does not prevent you from being sued. It just means that when you are sued, you then have a way to defend yourself as a property owner. And the idea that Charles will remain neutral on, the idea is that the concept is that you will not have $100 million jury award. That's the goal. So that's a lot of information. There is, I'm willing to take questions. There's some information on our website. So with that, Ron, I think I've came in under my time.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Charles. Interesting stuff. All right. So just to clarify a few things about this Florida law that you were just talking about. So is it correct to say that's not something that's enforced as a code would be? Rather, it provides a certain amount of a safe harbor should there be a lawsuit. So if properties do not comply with this, they're just assuming the risk. They're not facing any sort of code violation. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So basically, the way the statute was written, number one, it's not mandatory. Now, in the state of Florida, there are a few statutes that are closely aligned with security that are mandated. Like, for instance, there's a structural integrity statute that goes back to when the tower fell 6 or 8 years ago. There's a bidirectional antenna statute that's mandatory that has to do with communication in terms of first responders. This, unfortunately, was not a mandated, the wording was not that it was a requirement. It is an option. However, when you look at who's affected, that's 45% of the Florida housing market, or approximately 1.2 million properties. So even though it's not mandatory, what we are seeing, even as of this morning with a potential client, we are seeing that these companies are starting to realize that from an insurance claim payout, and that jury award in July was definitely registered on the Richter scale when it comes to the property management companies in especially in South Florida, because that's a significant judgment, jury award, I should say. So no, it's not mandated, but it is there as an option, and we are seeing more and more properties taking advantage of it. And let me also add one more thing. There are companies that are seeing this and what's going on in Florida, and they're realizing that while there's not a statute in Texas or in Georgia or in New York, I want you to fast forward to, let's say there is a claim in New York, and the property management did all their properties in Florida, but they didn't do anything outside the state of Florida. Now fast forward, and you've got a claim, let's say 3 years from now, and the personal injury attorney is deposing your executive. Let's play this through. So let me get this straight, Mr. Executive. You did all your properties in Florida, but you didn't do anything outside the state of Florida. Is it because you don't like your people? You don't want them to be safe and secure? I mean, like, it will not play well if you start thinking about this. So some of these companies are realizing, let's use Florida's statute as a roadmap or a guide for the rest of our property portfolio within the rest of the country. And so we're definitely seeing that happen.
All right. So somewhat related to that, one of our attendees asks, do you know if any other states are considering similar legislation?
So there are a number of states that have passed tort reform. In fact, my state of Georgia just passed it in the last legislative session. Unfortunately, they did not do a copy paste, which is what we were hoping that they would do on the Florida statute. They still put in some teeth, so to speak, in terms of certain guide, or I guess you'd call them guardrails in terms of the lawsuits, but no one that I'm aware of, no one in the United States has done what Florida has done by laying out literally a step-by-step process for earning compliance. Let me also say this, because I think this is important. None of these reports are sent to a state agency for, in other words, there's no repository. We don't know who's compliant and who's not. So this is very confidential in terms of that way. Again, where the rubber meets the road is when there's a claim or a lawsuit filed. And it's at that point that the property says, well, we're compliant. Here's all of our documentation. And so that's really where that comes into play.
All right. And another just point of clarification. So speaking of negligent security lawsuits in general, is it accurate to say that there does not have to be a law on the books saying that property X must meet these standards? Even if there is no such applicable law, a negligent security lawsuit can still be filed and won?
No, absolutely. The way this works is a personal injury attorney has a theory about why their client has a good case to sue a defendant, right? So the theory is that, hey, they didn't take care of their duty of care. I will even provide you another insight. That case that we went over a minute ago, there was foreseeability potentially. Again, I was not involved in the case. I think if you read up on it, there's a conversation or an argument about potential foreseeability. And the reason was the girl who was the shooter was on property 3 months prior and shooting her gun and making threats. She then left. She came back 3 months later and actually committed the murder at that point. So I'd be willing to bet you that the jury saw, and probably the attorneys that argued the case, that there was foreseeability. But no, it's not. These negligent security lawsuits are simply saying that they should have done better with their duty of care. And because of that, they should compensate the injured party.
Right. Are lawsuits such as these, are they relatively new? Are they increasing? Do you have a sense of that?
Well, so I'm a member of IAPSC, International Association of Professional Security Consultants. I would say about half of our membership does forensic expert witness work. We are very busy. It is and I think that's where maybe the rest of the industry doesn't realize what it is that's actually going on with these cases and how the technologies. So you think about it from a technology manufacturer, a software developer, the integrator, the installer, this whole ecosystem that we have could in the future be called into question if there is a negligent security case alleging that maybe the system wasn't installed correctly, or the integrator didn't act responsibly, or whatever you want to come up with, right? So I guess it's been an eye opener for me, and most of the people I've spoken to in the industry had no idea that this was going on, or at least a majority of them.
Yeah, it does raise some interesting possibilities. Certainly, if there was negligence, then that would be one thing. But could you foresee the possibility of, and I know it's just speculation at this point, but based on what you've seen, the possibility of an integrator or installer being pulled into these lawsuits, with the argument being you should have advised that they deployed a higher level of security?
I would not be surprised if that's already been the case, but not knowledgeable to me. Think about that case I just showed you. The security guard firm was held 18% liable. So that's 18 million. It's not a stretch to see that that could have gone to an integrator. It could have included even all the way back to a technology manufacturer, a software developer, even a consultant. Let's look at us as consultants. We're specifying, we're designing, we're engineering. It could be that we're called into question in terms of our duty of care in terms of how we design the system. So I'm not aware of any, but I suspect that that's just because I'm not knowledgeable of it doesn't mean that it hadn't happened.
Sure. Yeah, interesting stuff. All right. I think that's all of our questions. Any parting words, any takeaways you'd like to leave with the audience?
Other than the fact that my video just went blurry. No, I mean, look, I really appreciate the time, the opportunity. This has been a great, the other two guys did great. I think I would like to offer one more thing as I turn my camera off and then turn it back on. The SEPTED community, you heard Dom mention it. It's becoming more, I recently, when I took the PSP, there were 140 questions, 3 of which were SEPTED related. Unfortunately, there's only about 20%, if this is my guesstimation, maybe 20% of our industry that even knows what SEPTED is. So I would love for there to be a push and a focus. Yes, I'm the outreach chair for the U.S. SEPTED Association, but there's a lot of benefits to SEPTED, and for the fact that Florida brought that into a statute and included it is monumental, because it's been around for a long time, since the 1960s, developed by an architect, but it absolutely has a place in our industry beside the technology, because just like he said, if your trees and your shrubs and your lighting and your if all of that is suspect and not cared for, the best security system's not going to do. I mean, you could have the most expensive cameras, but if you've got poor lighting or landscaping that's overgrown, and you're not going to be able to see it. So it goes hand in hand with the technology conversation.
Right. Yeah. Great point.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Really appreciate it. And thank you as well to Jason and to Dom. Thank you, of course, to Access and Allegion for sponsoring this event. And as we close here, I'm going to put this up one more time. We hope you can join us at the next NCRSF networking event if you're in the DC area on February 19th. That'll be in Arlington, Virginia. The next symposium on banking and financial security, February 25th. And of course, ISC West and the many SIA events out there, including the market leaders reception, data privacy, data center security breakfast, protecting utilities lunch, women in security forum breakfast, the interface standards event, many others as well. Check out all of those events as well as other SIA events throughout the year at securityindustry.org/SIA-events. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.